Shipwrecks and Seafaring Tales of Venture Island by Julie V. Watson. Part 2. 1745. Brought down by New England raiders. John Paul de Roma is credited with establishing what, for its time, was a model settlement in the area of Birdnell Point. 13 years had been spent planning and nourishing a colony on land created by the king. The Frenchman was in fact the only one who had fulfilled his promise for lands great Belgium and France, who tried to run it ravaged with a plague of mice who ravaged a whole harvest, ready for a sickle. So it was the De Roma settlement on the pier viewed furniture as rosy in 1745. Its people were content with the luxury of working in a free land. His barns were filled, his fishing and trading fleets was prosperous, and his active yield bounties increased. There was something of June in the blood of Diana as he sat on the jetty, dreaming. Nothing before in his whole life had he been so truly happy. His little hamlet with the conduct, glorious land in the whole wide world, so thought the father and founder of the three rivers, all forming that drama of lifetime can be attached in few brief moments. Little did Emma dream that before sunset on a bright summer day his settlement received a blow from which it would never recover. Later in the day a sail was sighted on the horizon. Normandy gave way to Bissett and examined it with preparation. But when his most incredible settlers discovered that it was an enemy cruiser, there was a deplorable settler discovered what it was, but was the frank tone of excitement. What to do? There was great hunger and temerity to and fro in the frightened colony, which resembled a desperate ant-hill. Well, from the warship anchored off the point, armed men followed for shore. The French could offer no resistance, for their total armament consisted of old iron 6-pounder fit only for sledging. De Roma, his son and daughter, and 5 servants fled to the woods, where they lay hidden. The New Englanders had landed and ransacked every building. All articles of value were carried off to the ship, nor were they satisfied with nimbly looting the place. They set fire to the buildings, and soon the flames were leaping skyward. The episode spoke the spirit of De Roma. He and his family struggled through the wilderness for days until they reached St. Peter's and worn haggard clothing. They took a ship for Quebec and never returned to their ill-fated colony at Three Rivers. The site of the settlement is marked with a monument which is still visited by many tourists. This was a minor incident in the War of the Austrian Succession. They ragged in Europe, but it was a sign of how the rapidly spread across the Atlantic. The American colonies nurtured and took up with zeal the centuries-old fight between Mother England and Dane France. The New Englanders claimed for the capture of Fort Louisburg, which had so long hampered the colonial trade in North Atlantic. In 1745, Louisburg was taken and explosion was sent to destroy the principal settlement. And Isles the St. John, which just read, was the strange resort attacked. The visit of this priory to Three Rivers, later Pierre Barbaron, was the scene of the same kind of warfare. The equal combat between the hawk, the chicken, the Acadians. Their homes and ashes fled to the woods. A garrison of 20 men under Ensign Jennifer Riddle up the Northumberland Hillsborough River, until joined by a band of Mi'kmaws and habiters, it turned and fought so faithfully that the enemy were obliged to take to their boats, which a loss of 9 killed or wounded. The skirmish was likely the only battle between the English and French on island soil. The French gave 6 hostages as a pledge of good behavior, and peace was made. 1749. Cryptogram, pirates, and buried gold. When the following story approached in the July 1900 issue of the Prince Edward Island magazine, it led to the publication of the explosion of mystery. Few months later, it does take time for this tale to get back to 1749, but eventually it does. It is this kind of revelation where could lead to such of treason hunter drag up the earth. I've revealed the whole document here in case this could be clues which will lead some reader today to untold wealth. On the many tales of supernatural manifestation controlled with secret sports and P.E.I. P.E.I. which of the most noble is, I think, that which I am about to relieve. The place is settled alongside a small stream which empties into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. It is known as Hollow River. A great many of these streams flowed into the Gulf should not have been called rivers at all, but creeks, as their supply of water is so small. At one time in the early history of this place, the public road was centered around 10 chains from the coast. On one night, somewhere about the year 1840, in the month of March, just before Jack Frost had withdrawn his command over land and sea, the ground on the slope towards the mentioned stream and about the chain of the old road was taken out in 2 lots, extremely the size of 2 graves, and placed on the ice which covered the stream. These pits were each about 7 feet long, 2 feet and a half wide, and 4 feet deep. The most particular circumstances connected with the affair was that the soil was dug out was deposited on the ice in compact blocks exactly the size of the pits, not a vertical long, loosened, a place about a foot at the pits. There was also 3 other pits, marked about the same dimensions in length and beneath, but the soil had been raised. The blocks which had been taken out held their form until the April thaw. They lost their square shape and became more piles of earth. When the news of this wonderful event was made known, a great many visited the place, and many were the remarks of wonder. It was considered no work of human power, but who did the deed remains a mystery to this day, as events of curious happenings are sure to effectually directions who change to there. But if Donald Gordon is at the place to see the place, and though that he must be gold buried underneath the dig pits, he therefore assured and meant for digging from the people living near at hand. He dug for some time until water came into the pit, and he nearly perished, so he had to give up what he expected to prove a profitable discovery. It is not surprising that poor Donald Gordon failed in the discovery of gold, for although Kolodkai was not at that time known, he did not undergo such hardships as someone who had gone therefore with no better results. When all wonder and reference to the occurrence had denied away the owner of the property, fearing the wandering animals might chance to fall into the pits, closed them up, so that at the present day no one can tell the remarkable spot, unless he is acknowledged by some of the oldest inhabitants of the place. Hence the reason this circumstances anywhere at the time of this affair happened few near the coast would either read or write. The same is true of the locals at the date, and as there was no attraction for the sportsman or the anglers, no visitor ever visits the old legend concerned with Hollow River. Sentence: The Prince Edward Island Magazine, July 1900. An experiment of a mystery. From the days of my youth, old documents, journals, records, and all such results of the earlier times have ever handed over to the greatest friendships whenever I hear of the discovery of anything in this line that might be of special interest. I always make it a point to see the document, and if possible, to attain possibility of it. Failing this, I gradually managed to attain at least a copy. In this way I have occurred in a lapse of years, quite as a growing present mix of interesting for anything where a few of the papers are still valuable as having a direct bearing on some important questions which regard literacy men, even into this age. To this letter of class of writing in my possession belongs a copy of an old document found among the papers of the relatives of a great-grandfather of mine, now deceased. Peace to his ashes. Who thought not then, feeling disposed to part with so interesting as heirloom, kindly presently from it a copy according to my custom and such documents, this which I now fear as having a question still discussing among current topics and a current locally to the origin of that apparently mysterious phantom, which about 60 years ago caused such a furor among the descendants of Hollow River, and which at a later date has for Mr. Son with a skeleton for his legend, published in the Island magazine for July 1900, and of which he asked if anyone can offer any explanation and response. A copy to which I have referred is thereby submitted not only for his in England, but also for the powerful of whoever might think the matter worthy of attention. Before giving my transmission, I would attain the reader to say that the original of it bore every evidence of age, authentically, and with the assurance of my friend of its genuineness added to this. I trust there may not be any disposition to doubt the truth of what was recorded in so visible a journal. This original paper appears to be the remnant of a very commercial diary. Reads as follows: A.D. 1749, N. September. Date: Saturday the 2nd. Some seasons by while strolling along the shore at sunset, I suddenly glanced upon the water, some distance from land, what appeared to me to be a large bottle, slowly moving shoreward. I turned about my steps in a direction to where I thought the floating glass would reach the sands, and there I set myself upon a rock. After some short period of what I was gratified to see it cast upon the beach but a few paces from the rock which I rested, and thinking this object a bottle I had judged arranged, but it was not of any such a size. Its approach to my vision. It was a vessel which was such a size as it first appeared in was a vessel of a capacity of perhaps some half-dozen gulls, but on picking it up I found to my great surprise that it contained nothing except a small piece of parchment closely folded and sealed well within a seal. In the orifice of this bottle was placed a cork, and over the seal was also placed a cork, and over this seal was also placed what I added similar to the one placed upon the paper within it, and the inscription upon the seal, then somewhat defaced by the attention of the water. I was unable to understand, for the reasons that it concerned, besides some portions of water words written in a language that which I do not possess the power to translate. I consumed it, this language as similarly proved correct to be of the French, for the reason the letters resembled much the characters of our own alphabet, and furthermore the words had form in some instance I thought similar to those of the grammar on the Great Seal of His Majesty King George, and put it on certain first. This is what I have seen. As I consume the treasure of some value, I will be able to contain it. I placed it beneath my cloak and carried it home with me, so I might examine it at leisure. With some difficulty I succeeded in removing the seal upon it, among intact, the both of which I placed carefully away. With trembling hands I then drew forth the printed on which the seal proved to be, as I concerned, similar to the first. It was a note written, to my great astonishment, not even in the French, but in a number of concerned unbroken lines, which at first sight reminded me the characters in an ancient book of the Greek, owned by my friend the schoolmaster. On closer examination, the letters proved to be of our own, but it was impossible to know the measure for the they spelt to work. The description may be better understood. I copied the notes below. Here it says, Eden World of Good, Studio Good, 1738, 2113 AA, equal consonant, equals mix, equals consonants, consonant, like equally. I don't know what that says. Over the mysterious message, or whomever it may be termed, I pondered and studied long. Every moment of my spare time I devoted to it, arranged in various forms the jumbled letters, which the hope that I might find a clue to managing, but all in vain. When I handed Stewart a slow puzzle alone by myself, I showed it to all persons whom I considered likely capable of obtaining an idea of its contents. But all witnessed, none understood any part of it. But I planned to say myself that what appeared to be a date, the 10th day of a month, A.D. 1738. At length I began to suspect that I was being made the butt of some cocksmith joke, and so my judged. I soon thought of little what had so lately assured my thoughts. But yesterday I had a visit from an old friend whom I not seen for many seasons. He is the captain of a ship and had many voyages to foreign parts. Naturally, our conversation turned to things related to the seas, the many curious incidents of life upon the water. Suddenly I was remembered of my own curious find, and might be expected. I related the story of my long forgotten bottle with its mysterious note. As a contrast, I heard from my friend a story romantic, it is true, but the which notably has indicated gracefully my interest, reader me still more desirous of reading the secret message. While on a voyage to Newfoundland and the islands of France, in the quarter also my friend the captain chanced to meet with in the harbor of St. Pierre, a mariner who was about to cross the ocean. This man, on learning that his new aircraft from the Isle of St. John related him a wondrous story. Born in the seaport town of Anvers, he had at an early age taken to the sea. He had in early life, he said, been possessed of an uncommon longing for adventure, and he was affected, attracted, opportunity of imagining his desire in the turbulent times. After a short service in the Navy, he disbanded and went in search of more exciting work. A position with promise to satisfy him soon found a privateer, the Eagle, then about to sail for America. This craft was under the command of a lawless being who accounts no overlord rider her on the P.E.I incident, and it appeared that of the latter he never thought. The real nature of his duties the young adventurer was not out from the land that he started to learn about the operation of vessel, which has to be nature by name. By others he had undergone a band of pirates. He placed in charge of the guns, of which they had 4 on board, to follow them their various expeditions crossing the ocean, world renowned further than I could now spare. Having the hearing about the Gulf not far out of the way of the vessel trade between the colonies and the mother countries, they obtained by force not only everything they needed, but the ruthless chief by many a heartless deed, adding currently to his store of booty waters by their assault ship was sent a helpless, derelict, watery grave. About a year passed over, and the young pirate began to having longs for some passion more pleasing to taste. He wished to be put on shore, but of this captain would hear, for the double reason that his naval training saved him well in the headline of cannon and remover. He gathered a report of their persons by this means by spared aboard the name all be known, but prevents to the rescue. Early in the summer of the year 1738, the buccaneers fell in with a brig bound for the British colony of Massachusetts. The ship escaped without serious injury being inflicted upon her by the armed Eagle, but they were able to leave hence a prisoner in the hands of the pirate, one who had proved to be overzealous in the defense of his ship. When taken on board, this unforgettable would scarcely regard of everything in possession, and therefore considered wit about his captors, which then allowed the liberty of the ship watched by his captors was then allowed the liberty of the Furthermore, the youngest of the crew, the man from Havre, discovered to the prisoner more fuming than was pleasure to the master. He was as a means of rebuke to be held, reason for the self-keeping of their object of commission. Among others, articles found in the possession of their captive was a fragment of paper published in the city of London. Although in English it contains was, re- was readily known to the captain for the reasons that he was learned in both languages. The qualification was possessed by the English captain, although he very wisely took care not to dissolve any knowledge whatever of the French. One thing in the paper that generally indicated soon alarmed the captain was a proclamation of the king offering reward of several hundred of pounds for the capture of a very vessels that which he now commanded. He learned from the captive with whom he concerned fairly in the English that the proclamation had only recently been issued, but that even with every armed craft on their way to the western waters, all confidence of obtaining present prize, to flee with their treasure, unless defence for small guns was impossible. All concussion was therefore held, and the course of action most extreme was soon decided upon. The captive, though always closely watched, was not prevented from being within or shot of others as they formed their plans. The captain, as the stewards, never seemed to him understand that Custer's converse was being made. What the crew had decided to do might exactly be guessed. They were found to hide the guns and treasure on the land in some settled spot, where they might return when all search for them had ceased. Once rid of their guns and having on board no thing that was not necessary for all crony, they could never be suspected of being the buccaneers of the law. The Eagle having progressed rapidly to the north until they passed the east cape of this island on their left, then they steered to the west, closing along the northern shore until they arrived at a position neighboring to the settlement of the Acadians. On the shores, so, on the shores of a pond of godly size, here the captain with one man went upon the shore. Next evening they returned, bringing with them a number of enter using for the farmers and strengthening their land, and also an increase of the dark eye upon the branches of the palms. The captain then gave orders to head onward from the land. At nightfall the lagoon steered to the west, approaching gradually to the shore until a distance some few miles west of the settlement they were as close to the land as it was possible to come, without having their ship upon the sands. Here a small stream flowed into the sea. Among the banks was a luxuriant growth of branches. Here they cast anchor, and the captain with all his followers but one went with their goods upon the shore. One was left, a young adventurer from Javier, who told my friend this story. To this great chain he was ensured to land and guard from escape. The Englishman anxiously did he followed with his eyes his command, command comrades as they pursued to the land, but they were soon lost to his vision in the gloom of the shore. Still did he gaze after them, paying little attention to his cargo, who now washed at will through the parts of the ship and troubled his guard only to ask if him a flask of the wine which his floating prison was well supplied. But the plan of the man out open land I had almost forgotten to record in this account of my friend's narrative. Even near Louisburg, after entering the strait, they had commanded there very naturally through necessary to have it and the guns enclosed in some manner so that they might not only be placed removed at the earliest opportunity, but worked in each box. Therefore one familiar cannon barrel nose would give the boxes much the appearance of a copper under towards the breech, and becoming smaller towards the muzzle end. For the treasure no other packages was needed, at those which held the guns, also for the simple reason that was the guns were round, the boxes enclosed them, usually for square shapes, so that a significant space would be granted in the four boxes, both in and out the guns, to hold all the treasure that they wished to place away. This many reading by scene by taking a closer person about it spared to enclose it. To dig pits, cover up the boxes would be simple work, but they intended to return as further time and take away what they were now placing here for safety. When everything was put in where the feature of were mostly done, soon they upon a plan. Additionally, the boxes the numbers followed were exactly the same length as of the smaller ones. They were about 4 feet in depth and weighed out kilograms. Their use was to be this: when the pits would be dug about 6 feet in depth, that exactly the depth of a large box and a small one, The small and valuable boxes were to placed on the bottom, and down over them the large and empty ones be lowered into the open boxes on the top of the earth, removing from pits, to be renewed, and the turfs carefully placed in a position as to cornel that they had ever been distanced by the arrangement would necessarily be moving treasure again, would be to raise the upper blocks of inches of to find 40 feet of clay. Now, after a journey of several hours of hard working for the one party, and of anxious waiting for the other, the men returned to the ship. Everything that might give the eagle an offer appearance of different to trading vessels was either thrown overboard or concealed. Once they set sail for the east, but to follow further is of no interest. The adventure from the port of France was left with the English sailor at an anchor seaport in the native land, and the Eagle continued on her course down the Mediterranean. Some years after he had visited the island of St. John, in hope of finding some trace of the treasure he had so well hoped to attain, but all search was in vain. He had trusted to his memory to find the place, but was disappointed. He was then leaving St. Pierre to settle in the land of his birth. Such was my friend the captain's story, and incredible as it appears at first, it has set me thinking, may there not be some connection between it and my untranslated note? The year says was 7 AD 1738. My note clearly shows the same number. The vessel was from France. The seal is of the French number. The manner remembered of giving the prisoner a flask of wine. Many note this, but this very vessel in which the note was borne to my hands, the English prisoner had of abundant opportunity of preparing and sealing such a message, that which he might afterward have lost or intentionally cast into the water. My earnest hope is that by favor of Providence I may yet to be enabled to understand this message, and if not, that my years may not lose any interest in context, but strive as early as I have done to attain meaning. If successful, they may reward with becoming possessors of the honored and hidden treasures of the buccaneers from the shores of France. This record, with its romantic tales, leave little to be explained. Take the money was buried at Hollow River, a small stream a few miles west from a pond, etc. Is quite evident where the cryptogram to fit it might make a sure double sure, but this work the writer does not know intended to undertake. He leaves it to some angelic, angelic reader, blessed with more skill and possessed than its future process, whether or not the meaning of this mystery message be ever occurred. We have in the other record of truth a very satisfactory explanation of what gave rise to the legend of Hollow River, and that makes the account more interesting. We have it all the result of Christian Bottle, D.A.W., An Explosion of Mystery, The Prince of It Island Magazine, October 1990. This is the end of part 2. Part 3 will be up by tomorrow.